Okay, before I go back to the example we were just looking at, I just want to point out one more thing. So public and private doesn't have to be restricted to just variables. It can also be restricted to methods. So if we look at our assignment number one, I actually did this behind the scenes. I was trying to do information hiding at the method level also because I only wanted you to worry about things that you were going to draw. But there were other things that I did behind the scenes to actually make this work. So if I look at scene3d.java, I see, okay, I have a constructor. This just sets up these empty lists for the cameras, the lights, the colors, and the shapes. But then there are some private methods I have, which this is kind of doing like what you did in Lab 1, where I'm actually, based on the shapes that are there, I'm writing code, actually, something called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. I don't want you to worry about that at all. That's something that happens behind the scenes. I don't even want you to try to call this method because you'll just confuse yourself. So I'm just going to make it private. That's my job to worry about as the person who's setting up the scene. Your job is just to worry about what shapes to put there. So I have one of these for something called Get Transformation Hierarchy. I have one of these. So the add box is public. Like that's something I want to do, make available to you. Add cylinders public. All these add shapes are public. But if I keep scrolling, eventually I'm going to get to another private method where this is based on all the colors that you've used. I kind of set up different materials with these colors. Again, that's something internal. I don't want you to worry about how I'm setting up the colors. I just want you to use the colors wherever you want, and I'll take care of that. Same thing with the lights. Like, just set up your lights. I'll put them where they need to be. And same thing with the cameras and the list of shapes. Okay, but then I do want to make it available to you to save your scene somewhere, and that should be a public method. Now the save scene method itself, it's going to call some methods that only scene can call. Like, you don't need to worry about these methods, but you do want to be able to save the scene. So internally, I'm going to call these methods that are private to help set it up. So it's just a way for me to keep things more organized and make it easier for you, the user of the Scene3D class. So I don't want you, if I try to type scene dot, it's only going to show me the public methods that I have available. It's not even going to show me the private ones, like, get cameras JSON or get lights. That's an internal thing. Okay. So now you start to see how this structure lets you to design things that are more friendly and more modular, we say, and where things are really encapsulated in one place and made available to somebody else who's going to use it. By the way, the word encapsulated just means I put all this stuff that deals with the scene up into one capsule. That's what a class is. A class is a capsule. So we say that all this scene information has been encapsulated, and we have access to the parts of that capsule that are relevant to us as an end user of that capsule. But the capsule may have other things going on that if we pull back the rug, we see all this ugly stuff. But no, don't worry about it. Just worry about these things. Okay. Now there's one last thing I want to show you. Let me close this. One last thing I want to show you about classes. So if I go back to the driver, let me actually just erase all this and we'll start a little more simply. So I can also make an array of type class, right? I like before, I could say int x equals new int 10, and that would give me an x of all zeros, right? So say for int, oops, I used the same name, let me get rid of that. I say for int I equals 0, I is less than x dot length, I plus plus. I'll say system.out.println, or system.out.print xi, and put a space. Okay, fine. So if I do this, it's just going to print 0, 0, okay. So when I say x, so an array of type int called x equals new int 10, that's going to set up memory with 10 ints in it. And here this loop goes through all of them and prints them out. Well, why not do the same thing with students? So what if I say, well, x is actually an array of students. So an array of type student, I'll say, is equal to new student 10. So now what happens when I print these out? Pause for a second. There should already be some red flags in your head, because where did I specify where did I call the constructor, right? Like, I never had an opportunity to say that their name was Chris Traley and they were a sophomore. So let's just run this. It did give us an error. So let's just see. Not a syntax error, so what happens at runtime? Okay, so it says null, 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 null. So 10 nulls. All right. So that null is kind of like an uninitialized object, or we say uninstantiated object. It means that I haven't called the constructor on any of these. So I need to do that, or I need to actually say, I can say like student Chris is equal to that, and I can say x at index 0 equals Chris, and maybe x at index 5 equals Celia. And then I can say like x at index 6 is equal to new student, and I'll say my brother. So what is he, 23 now? James Traylor. Let me actually print lines, so these are on different lines. Okay. So, oops, where did I mess up? Oh, of course, I need his class here too, so we'll see he's a freshman. Always be a freshman to me. Okay. All right, so let's run this. And now we see, okay, so the element at index 0 is Chris, and that prints out okay. Then we've got null, null, null. And then we've got Celia, who's at index 5. And then we've got James, who is at index 6. So see, I could construct it on the fly. Whoops, I can construct it on the fly here. I could say x at index 6 is equal to new student. Or I could assign to this array objects that I've made before. So I just wanted to make you aware that if you set up your array, the elements are null by default. But you're going to need to call the constructor eventually, some way, somehow. Okay? So what I want you to do in this last exercise in this first module is create an array of students where the first 10 are freshmen and the next 10 are sophomores. And I don't care what name you give them. They can be whatever name you want as long as you pass, and age too, as long as you pass the long strings. Okay, so we'll check that.